And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host Kenneth Grunfelder, and it's great to have you guys here. On this Tuesday, July 16th, we have a lot to talk about on the show today. Before I get into that, just want to remind you guys, as always, tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to the following link, that is gsmcpodcast.net. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is gsmcpodcast.net. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker at the bottom of the show segment down below. So let's get into what we are going to talk about for today. It's kind of going to be a quarterback-themed show, pretty much, for all the segments, with the exception of one. So we're going to continue our quarterback rankings. Today we will be going over the NFC North quarterbacks, so I will rank them. And then in the second part of the show, we'll talk about Aaron Rodgers. More comments from him on how he's feeling. Also, we'll talk a little bit about the trip that he had, the trip to Egypt that he had. We're going to talk a little bit about it. We're not going to go into it because I don't really know the specifics of the trip other than that's where he went. So we'll get into that. Then we will talk about Saquon Barkley, just his comments on the longevity of a running back. Had some interesting comments there, so I wanted to talk about that. Trevor Lawrence, we'll talk about him in the fourth part of the show, get into what he has to say about the upcoming 2024 season for the Jags, and then in the final part of the show, so, there's been those top 10 lists of pretty much each position and the head coach as well, that, executives and coaches have, put together. And there were some comments made about Brock Purdy by an executive anonymously, and I just kind of wanted to go over that because Brock Purdy was left out of the top 10, so I wanted to give you my thoughts on that as well. So that's the rundown for the show today. So let's get into the first topic, which is discussing the NFC North. And this is going to be one of the best divisions in football, in my opinion, this year. It's not as good as the AFC North, but I think it's going to be a very good division. And let's get into the rankings here. So at 4, I have J.J.McCarthy / Sam Darnold because I don't really know who's going to end up starting the year. It seems like it's going to be Sam Darnold to start the year, and I think eventually during the year we're going to see J.J. McCarthy at some point. And I like the Vikings roster. I like their offense a lot. Of course, you have Justin Jefferson, the best receiver in football in many people's eyes. Jordan Addison looks like he's going to be a good number 2. T.J. Hawkinson, Aaron Jones is now the lead back. So I like the Vikings offense. My thing is not really sure how Sam Darnold's going to be if he does end up starting. I mean, he's got a good supporting cast around him, so you would expect him to do at least decent until it's time to put in J.J. McCarthy. And I don't really know what to expect from J.J. McCarthy. And, there's another rookie quarterback that's going to be starting, but I don't know. I feel like I'm a little bit higher on him than I am on J.J. McCarthy. I know people have their criticisms when it comes to J.J. McCarthy, just the fact that, Michigan ran the ball a ton of times and, he kind of, wasn't really asked to do much. I know there's some criticism with that. So, that's going to be put to the test at some point. I think he ended up in a good situation. There's people out there that say he's going to be Zach Wilson 2.0. But Zach Wilson went to a team in the Jets that, they've had some problems developing quarterbacks in recent memory. And I think ending up on the Vikings, I think, is a good situation for him. And he's not going to start right away. It looks that way. But that's why I have, both of them here, because I think they're going to get their fair share of, I don't know if I want to say fair share, but they're going to both see the field at some point this year. And I know if you could see to the left there, there's Nick Mullins as well. But I don't think you're going to see. I mean, if you're seeing Nick Mullins playing, then that could be a problem. But I think, you're going to see Sam Darnold start the year, and then eventually they're going to transition to J.J. McCarthy, I think, at some point during the year. But I'm going to put them at 4. So that's the number 4 spot. Then at 3, we got Caleb Williams. I feel like I'm the highest when it comes to Caleb Williams amongst the rookie quarterbacks this year. And I think part of that's the number 1 overall pick. And, he did put up solid numbers in college. I think towards the end there, there was some criticism. But I don't know. I feel like J.J. McCarthy, believe it or not, I think he ended up in a good situation with the Bears. And that's something that, you normally don't say about a quarterback. But I love what the Bears did this offseason. I think their receiving core is one of the best in the league with DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, and Rome Odunze. And you also got Cole Kmet, who's a good tight end. And I think they're going to be backed by a good running game. You bring in DeAndre Swift, who's coming off of a nice year with the Eagles. You know what? And I think like J.J. McCarthy, you're going to see some early struggles. It's not like they're going to, set the world on fire right away. It's going to take some time. Now, Caleb Williams, unlike some of these other rookie quarterbacks, he's going to start right away. I mean, the Bears have already said that he's going to be the starting quarterback. So, there might be some early season struggles. I think they got a fairly winnable game against the Titans in week 1. But then you get put to the test in week 2. Sunday Night Football against the Texans. But we'll have to see. And I think he could be good. I think these 3 and 4 spots, you could kind of flip them if depending on which quarterback you like better. For me, I didn't watch a ton of film on these guys. I sound like a guy that, an analyst that watches film, but it's not like I spent hours watching both of these guys play. I'm basing it off of the situations that they ended up in. And I don't know. I feel like Caleb Williams, he's going to have the better year than the Vikings quarterbacks, just in my opinion. But that's my thoughts on it. But we'll have to see, when we get to the 2024 season. So then at number 2, got Jordan Love. I am very high on Jordan Love going into 2024. And I think by the end of the year, we could be looking at him taking over that number 1 spot in this division. But for now, I'm going to put him at 2. And it was a roller coaster season for him and the Packers last year. Got off to a good start. Then in the middle of the year, it looked like he wasn't the guy. But then towards the end, the Packers went on a hot streak. He started playing really well and put together a really good season. Won a playoff game against the Cowboys. They had the 49ers on the ropes. I'm expecting him to go out there and play really well. But there's also a chance that, maybe he doesn't repeat what he did last year. We got to see him be consistent over the course of the whole season. And yeah, there's going to be some struggles here and there. I think everybody, every team goes through struggles. But the Packers, in the middle of the year, they looked like one of the worst teams in football, especially offensively. But Jordan Love got right, and he played really well. He looked like an MVP candidate. So, I think there's some things he's got to work on. Because the last pass that he threw at the end of the year, that was not good. That looked like the Jordan Love that was turning the ball over in the middle of the year. So you want to correct that. And I think he's got a good array of weapons around him. You got Josh Jacobs now coming out of the backfield. So I'm looking forward to the Packers and their season, and I think Jordan Love is going to put up good numbers once again this year. Packers should be a playoff team once again. So I have him at the 2 spot right now, but like I said, could take that 1 spot. Don't be surprised at the end of the year, but we'll see. And then at number 1, you got Jared Goff. Last year, played really well. I mean, you led the Lions to the NFC Championship game. And, I expect him to have another solid year again. Now, I think, the other thing for why I believe Jordan Love can maybe take over as the number 1 QB in the division is also his ability to, take off and run with it if he has to. Jared Goff is still one of the more, traditional pocket passers. And there's nothing wrong with that. But that's just another dimension to Jordan Love's game that maybe is lacking with Jared Goff. But still, I out of respect for him and what he did last year, I'm still putting him at number 1 in this division. And he's got a good supporting cast around him. I'd like to see, another receiver step up in that offense besides Amon-Ra St. Brown. And I know I've talked about it. Jameson Williams could be that guy. They got a good tight end, Sam Laporta, going into his second season. A pair of good running backs, Jahmyr Gibbs, going into his second year as well. And David Montgomery, solid offensive line. I expect Jared Goff to go out there and have a good year as well. And the Lions, they are one of the top teams in the NFC. And, we'll see what happens. We'll see what kind of encore performance they put on. Because last year, they made it to the championship game. Now, they have bigger aspirations than that. They want to try to get to the Super Bowl. And Jared Goff has played in the Super Bowl. He's played in a lot of big games over the course of his career. And I expect him to be playing in more big games when we get to the postseason. But last year, I think he put it, what was it? It was 30 touchdowns and 12 interceptions. It's a solid year. And I expect that to continue in 2024. And, and I've talked about this too. Just very happy for him that it's worked out here in Detroit, after, the Matthew Stafford trade and him getting traded over and the Lions weren't very good. But they really turned this franchise around. And, let's see what they do in 2024. So just to recap the rankings. So we got J.J. McCarthy / Sam Darnold at 4, Caleb Williams 3, Jordan Love 2, Jared Goff 1. Like I said, don't be surprised, if I have Jordan Love ranked ahead of Jared Goff by the end of the year. When it comes to the rookie quarterbacks, it's tough because, you just don't know until they eventually play. But I don't know. I feel like I'm high on Caleb Williams. I think he's going to play well, but we'll see. So those are my rankings. Let me know what you guys think about them. We are going to take now our first break of the show, and then when we come back, we will talk about another quarterback. We'll talk about Aaron Rodgers, the trip that he went on, as well as some comments that he made recently about, working his way back from the injury. So we'll get into all that when we come back from our first break of the show. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.